Hello and welcome back to the TVBinges.com Pilot Roundtable, a Southgate Media Group podcast. I'm Kyle Tremblay, the editor of TVBinges.com, and I am joined as always by a fellow TV Binges writer. She's been ordered by the hospital administration to improve her bedside manner. It's Olivia Richards. Hello.
That pesky hospital administration.
Oh, always holding you down and being racist.
Awful.
The worst. Come on, Dave Foley. So we are, of course, today talking about a pilot that I'm sure all of you watched. It premiered Friday night on ABC. It's the alleged comedy Dr. Kin, Medicine Woman, or just Dr. Kin. Olivia, what did you think of Dr. Kin?
I liked the term alleged comedy because it was not for lack of effort of trying to like it. Like, I tried really hard, and it's just, oh, no.
This is like the old Chappelle show sketch when keeping it real goes wrong.
Yep.
This is a pilot that has gone way wrong.
So wrong.
Way wrong. Ooh. First question, worst comedy of the season, or do you have another contender?
I think of this season, unfortunately, this would be it. And honestly, I don't think it's so much because there's like bad comedy with zero potential, but this show had so much potential and it was bad. And I think that's worse than having zero expectations for what this comedy could be.
Yeah, interesting. So do you have a history with Dr. Kin, or are you like a fan of him from the Hangover movies, or what's your take on
I love Ken Jeong from Community. I kind of saw the Hangover movies, and like I think he fits great into that because, like, you know, when he does over the top sort of like body humor, I think that's like where he really succeeds. But I think he was put on a show in a completely wrong format on the wrong network, and it's like he was given so little to work with, and it was really sad to kind of see, you know, a comedian who is really kind of specific in what he does be put into something that just was so wrong for him.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that totally. I think that you hit the nail on the head. Calling him a comedian, I think, is a little strong. He is. I mean, of course, his story is that he was a real doctor. He's a doctor who, you know, who sort of made his way into Hollywood, and what this pilot shows, I think, is that he is funny, but in a very specific set of circumstances where he has strong people writing for him, and he's a sort of side character who plays off other people and is written in a certain way. This, and I wish I had another example off the top of my head, but there's a long history of TV shows or movies based around side characters trying to turn them into main characters that have gone horribly awry. And this is a headlining example of that. This is trying to take someone's comedic persona from other shows and from film and build an entire world around it. And just to be clear, it fails spectacularly. Like, this isn't a bad pilot. This is a terrible pilot. This is woefully, painfully, cringe-inducingly unfunny. To the point that it's shocking to me that this made it to air. Like, this is a pilot that as soon as they saw the first shoot, ABC should have been like, oh no, like we can't do this. Like, this is,
we need to pull this immediately.
This needs, we'll just run a rerun of Castle or something. Like, this cannot happen. We can't embarrass ourselves like this. And ABC has kind of a history of this with this kind of comedy. They have really terrible comedic taste at ABC. I remember a few years ago was Work It. The cross-dressing comedy about men who were upset about all the jobs that women were getting, which is, of course, a real problem that exists. And so they dressed up as women in order to get jobs. So this is like kind of not as like on the face of it offensive, but I would say as misguided. Like, in terms of what this pilot thinks is funny is not what a sane human thinks is funny. And yeah, I mean, this is really bad. Really bad.
And I kind of feel like they opened, a book of like, all right, here's all the tropes that every other comedy has been doing, or every, whatever multicam sitcom has been doing for like the past, 20 or 30 years. And we're going to use every single one of them and nothing is going to make sense. And we're going to add Ken Jeong on top of it. It just,
Yeah. Yeah.
holy crap, this pilot was something else.
It's a show that doesn't have an idea. It's clearly like some genius at ABC was like, hey, let's give Ken Jeong a show. It's like, okay. And then they had no premise and they had no real sense of like what the show was. And so like you said, they basically scrappled together a number of sitcom tropes, put it all in front of a live studio audience, and we're like, okay, this is our show. And I mean, like, I guess we should talk about some specific scenes. I don't know if you found any particularly offensive, but I thought the opening scene, which is kind of what you want to, like, if you're a comedy, the opening scene is kind of your mission statement. And it was Dr. Kin being such a jerk to a guy who was clearly like not cool. Like he's like, oh, I diagnosed myself on WebMD. But the way that Dr. Kid was responding to him was like made me hate him more. Like I thought he was the villain of that scene, and he was just being a jerk for no reason. And it was like the dumbest, lamest comebacks being passed off as like high comedy.
Right.
And yeah, it was terrible. Did you ever see any scenes like that?
I think for me this time it wasn't Ken Jeong, like what they gave him in terms of material, but it's whatever, the guy who calls himself the mayor because he's like, I worked at Circuit City for whatever, like
Dave Foley.
years. Yes.
Poor Dave Foley.
Every single time he would say something that was incredibly offensive, where he, like, I think one of the employees had wanted to have like a diversity day, and he's like, well, you're a minority, so we're not going to do that. And then he's like, oh, just kidding, I'm going to give you like 2 extra vacation days so that you don't report that. And that kept happening. And I'm like, that's not funny. Like, that's really objectively terrible. That should not be a punchline. That's awful.
Yeah, I said this pilot didn't have any ideas. There is something in the background here about a commentary from the inside of the healthcare system about the corruption of the healthcare system, but it's limited to the most surface level possible, where it's like the corruption or inefficiencies of the healthcare system is represented by poor Dave Foley playing a racist buffoon who just sort of walks into scenes and says racist things so that everyone else can be like, oh, look at that racist. It's like, if you have something to say about that, then that's actually interesting and could be like a good launching point, but they've given it such a basic treatment that it really it's not saying anything. It's just a character who's on to say outlandish things for the sake of adding another quote unquote joke to this quote unquote comedy.
No, exactly. And it really bugs me because, again, like, you have a show that has, like, a really awesome diverse cast, and like when you have something like that and you let it kind of go to waste, or you have just a complete lack of comedy, or at least like empathy in the jokes that you're writing. Like, I love what Fresh Off the Boat does, and that's different because it's not a multicam sitcom, but like what it does with the cast is, they have like instances with Jessica, the main character, the mom on the show, and she has, her annoying white neighbors who will just come up and they're like, what does this mean in your culture? And she'll just say something like super offhanded because she's like, obviously it's incredibly ignorant, obviously, like that shouldn't have been said, but she's just like side-eyeing everyone. Like when it's a joke that's written like that, wherein the ignorance is kind of the punchline, but like it's not the racism that's the punchline.
Yeah. No, I think what you're getting at is that Fresh Off the Boat understands how to be funny.
No, I think that's what it boils down to.
This show doesn't. It's like walking a character into a room and having him say stuff about minorities isn't funny. You've got to have some other layer going on there, and yeah, this pilot, I don't think it understands funny. It just doesn't. It doesn't know what's funny about the premise. It doesn't know what's funny about the characters. It honestly seems to throw its hands up, like, with regards to the family. Like, the pilot just doesn't seem to have a grasp on why it exists. And so it tries a bunch of tropey sitcom stuff. The plot of this pilot, the A story, is the most, like, tired, old, like, oh, my daughter's getting her driver's license, but guess what? I don't want her to because I'm a protective father. It's like just the most like lame and been there, done that. Like, this is the pilot episode. You hope that you would have a better idea than that. So yeah, I mean, this is a show that doesn't seem to have the stomach to engage with any kind of real discussion if you want to go that direction with like a hospital, like healthcare problems and all of that. But it's also a show that doesn't have any sense of like manic fun or point of view. It's just a comedy that exists for no reason, that has nothing to say and is pitifully unfunny. So that's my takeaway.
That's incredibly accurate. And I had read something somewhere where it's like, like if you're going to have Ken Jeong like really go for insane, like, when he really commits and when he has enough going on, it's hysterical. But again, I really, really feel that this is the wrong format for him on the wrong network. Like, if he had something on like FX that's a single cam, kind of like what happened with Louis C.K., where he ended up, trying to have a sitcom for a while, and obviously that wasn't for him. So he was able to kind of take what failed in that and turn it into like a format that really, really works for his voice. Maybe, I'm really maybe thinking that Ken Jeong can do the same thing, but this show is such a failure.
Yeah, I don't know, honestly. I don't know if he has anything interesting to say, but I don't know that he doesn't. And it'd be interesting because he does have this unique background where he's someone who is in Hollywood and has been successful, but also has up close and personal experience with the medical profession. And so if he wanted to take this in a more socially conscious direction and actually like, maybe did a single cam the way that Louis does about his own experiences that illuminated some things that maybe the public doesn't know, that I would be interested in that. I have no idea if it would work or not, but it's like that's a much more interesting direction than this heavily watered down nothing comedy that just doesn't have really anything to say or anything going on.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. Anyway, this show did a 1.4 in the demo with 6.7 million viewers overall, which for a Friday night comedy is actually, sadly, pretty good. We'll see how it retains that audience. What is your sense, Olivia? Canceled quickly, makes it through the first season, or renewed for a second season?
I'm really thinking it's canceled quickly. I mean, this show has gotten so many bad reviews. And, like, regardless of ratings, just really no one seems to be able to really stomach it.
This one feels like a contender to last the fewest weeks. And if it wasn't for that kind of promising rating number at the start, I would really feel strongly about that. But this has all the makings of a multicam comedy that gets canceled after 2 or 3 weeks. Except the ratings. the ratings are a little bit good, which makes me think it might last a bit longer, but boy, everything about this show, from the critical reception to the actual quality of the pilot itself, screams out that it should be gone in like 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, completely.
Yeah. So, final verdict, it's a formality, I fear. Thumbs up or thumbs down on Dr. Ken.
This show, once again, it flatlined. It's too down. It has no pulse. It can't. It can't.
You saved all your doctor puns till the end.
I did.
Great work. You have better comedic timing than anyone on this show does. And it is, of course, a thumbs down for me as well. Let's hope that this one goes away quickly and we can get Ken Jeong out to something, to brighter, greener pastures somewhere.
Keeping my fingers crossed.
Yeah. All right. You've been listening to The Pilot Roundtable, a TVBinges.com and Southgate Media Group production. You can listen to all of our episodes on iTunes, where you can rate and review us. We'd appreciate that. Or find us at SouthgateMediaGroup.com. Follow Olivia on Twitter at RichardsOlivia and me on Twitter at KyleLovesTV. Till next time.